Demonic presence at unsafe levels. Lockdown in effect.
There are many demons, but there's only one.
Electro Demon.
Kill him!
Manhunt 2 is a sequel to the highly polarizing and brutal game Manhunt. It's also a game that has been banned in many countries due to extreme violence and gore you inflict to humans in this game. Is this game a worthy sequel, or is it relying on its shock value a bit too much? Stick with this review to find out. Manhunt 2 was developed by Rockstar Games, one of the most popular developers on the planet. It came out for the PC, PlayStation 2, Xbox and Wii in 2007. It's rare to see such games. It's so boundary pushing and full of controversy. It's also rare to see a game that has an AO rating. You just don't see many games like this. So what is Manhunt 2? Well, like I said, a sequel to the first one. The first one was pretty gruesome and prone to media outrage, and the sequel isn't very different. You play as Leo and Daniel, two asylum inmates that manage to escape the asylum during a thunderstorm that miraculously opens the doors in said asylum. Daniel is quite disoriented and has an amnesia, but your buddy Leo helps you to escape the asylum. You two escape the asylum and find a medication that helps Daniel recover some of his memory. Then Daniel starts to slowly recover memory throughout the whole game, and all the while being pursued by bounty hunters and the mysterious organization called The Project. It's actually a great story, and in my opinion surpasses the first one. There's a plot twist regarding Leo and Daniel, but I won't spoil it for you. But after a few levels it starts to get pretty obvious, and you'll figure it out before the game tells you. But it's still cool. Story is delivered to you via cutscenes, and the voice acting isn't bad. It's not top class, but it's not bad as Jill Sandwich. It's a shame that cutscenes aren't made in engine. I always like to see that. So what about the gameplay? Well, it's a mixed bag, to be honest. It's a stealth game that sometimes is also a straight up action game. And here lies the whole problem, but we'll get to that later. You lurk in the shadows and go behind an enemy to perform a stealth kill. While you're walking behind an enemy, the longer you hold your aim, the more gruesome the kill is gonna be. You have white, yellow and red. Red takes the most time to sneak behind the enemy, but the reward is the most brutal kill scene. Kind of like a risk-reward mechanic. It's easy to get red kill state when there's a single enemy, but when there's more, the longer you walk behind an enemy, you risk getting spotted by another enemy. Basically, you're invisible in shadows. While you're in a shadow, you can lure enemies by knocking on the wall or throwing a can on the floor. The enemy will likely come to investigate. They can't see you in shadows, but there's an interesting mechanic here. They come close to the shadow, and if the enemy suspects you're in there, he'll start looking really hard. Then a minigame kicks off. You have a circle and a dot in the middle, and you have to keep that dot in the circle. You pass that and you remain undetected. It's a goofy mechanic, but I kinda like it. It raises the tension, but even if you're discovered, it's not a big deal. Just run around and make a break for the next shadow. The AI in this game is dumb, so it's really easy to lose them. You perform these kills with melee weapons, mostly. Like I said, you sneak up to an enemy, you crawl behind him to raise the kill state, and then Leo or Daniel performs the kill. You get a brutal scene. You can also participate, sorta, with these mouse movements you can do, but luckily it's optional. I turned that off as soon as I got the game. It's better that way, in my opinion. Having to watch what you need to perform with your mouse just detracts from the pleasure of watching the kill. You can even fight with enemies if it comes to that. Melee combat is not bad, it is certainly not as clunky as it was in the previous game, but this should be used as a last resort. The main focus is on stealth kills, and it works. The kills are a thing of beauty. There's many weapons that just provide absolute joy in kill animations. Watching someone's head being decapitated with a saw or sticking a crowbar in someone's head is just a thing of pure video game beauty. I enjoy these scenes of gore very, very much. There are even environmental kills in the game. Basically, you can kill someone by jumping from a ledge on them, pulling their head in a vat of liquid nitrogen, sticking them in electrical junction box, and plenty more. I really love these environmental kills. And the locations in the game, my god, this is pure heaven for edgelords. There's a porn house, strip club, asylum and plenty more. I fucking love environments like these. I'm an edgelord, what can I say? The game is at its best when it gives you only melee weapons and forces you into stealth. It's what Manhunt is all about. But sadly, there are many levels that force you into shootouts. And these levels are not bad, but the shooting is not really all that interesting. The controls for aiming are wonky and the AI is not really smart. There's machine guns, shotguns and a few other fire weapons, but it's all weak. It's nothing special and it feels really out of place in a game like this. It also feels like filler content and it's very uninspired. I just don't see the point in these sections. The first game also had these sections and all the reviewers complained about it, so you'd think Rockstar learned their lesson, but sadly they haven't. Somehow the amount of shooting levels is increased when compared with the first game. What is immensely better than the previous game is the checkpoint system. You get a checkpoint fairly regularly, unlike in the first game, where you had to collect tapes in order to save. The stealth gameplay is just so much better than the first game, but the shooting is rubbish in both games. I still think Manhunt 1 is a better game and it holds a special place in my heart. Now I'd like to get a bit preachy. Get ready to be preached to. Both games garnered so much controversy because of their brutal scenes of violence. The media just took a dump on them. But the media is okay with Doom's violence, because in there we're killing demons instead of humans. That's just a load of rubbish. Apparently there needs to be a context to justify the killing, and I highly disagree with that. There's no difference between severing a demon's head and a human head. It's all video games. I don't need context to enjoy gore. I love gore and tearing limbs in video games without context or story behind those acts. Why? Because I'm a normal human being that can clearly distinguish real violence and gore and video game violence. I once saw a pig getting butchered in real life and I couldn't watch that. It was too grotesque and disturbing for me. But I very much enjoy video game violence and gore. There's a clear difference, and if you're not an unreasonable snowflake that gets triggered at everything, you should be fine with Manhunt 2 violence and gore. If you're not, I highly suggest that you join resetera.com. It seems to be a heaven for snowflakes. Let's talk about the graphics. I like the graphics in this game, everything is solid. It's a game that came out in 2007, so you can expect Metro Exodus levels of graphical fidelity here, but it's still playable, even today. It's good looking, characters and environments are fairly okay detailed for that time period when the game was released. I haven't noticed any game-breaking bugs or glitches in my playthrough. The soundtrack is also pretty good, not as awesome and pulpy as the first game, but still fairly good. If you plan on playing Manhunt 2 on the PC, I suggest turning off Screen FX. It's a weird filter that is on by default and it causes this weird old camera effect. I don't know, some may like it, but I prefer a clean looking game. Here's a comparison between having it on and off.
No problem, sir. We'll keep them entertained. Big mistake!
Manhunt 2 is an 8-hour game that provides highly enjoyable and gruesome stealth gameplay. If only the game didn't have those awful forced shooting levels, it would have been a perfect game in my book. But even with that in mind, it's still a very enjoyable experience, and it's definitely worth playing if you haven't already. If I had to give a score to this game, I'd give it 7.3 out of 10.
Huh?